that's been something that's bothered me ever since it started being a thing that got pushed out. Is this whole idea of toxic masculinity, because it's a blanket statement that basically says that acting like a man in any way is just this toxic, wrong, horrible, patriarchal thing. And I think there's a whole lot of facets to masculinity that are not toxic. I think there are some that are.
Yeah.
But, it's.
Where do you think that stems from? I was thinking about this earlier.
I think it stems from an overreaching attempt to go back to where we started. I think it stems from an overreaching attempt to silence the male voice and to make more Ahabs out of all of us. To neuter the male contingent as a whole, and to make us all silent, and really to just get rid of the man altogether. Maybe not the human man, but the man in mind and spirit. To just, to saddle break, if you will, so that we're just compliant and just do the work. Shut up. And I think we're seeing a lot of the negative effects. What do you think?
My thought was overreaching of just genders being equal. I mean, obviously women were oppressed, probably there's still that going on, but I think trying to equal that out of, the pay and the status and all that stuff to where they don't want anything, like everything has to be, anything a man can do, a woman can do. And I just think it's just the overdoing of that to where they don't want to accept that there's differences. A man and a woman are created totally different, and obviously you see the way society is trying to change that. But, I coached football, and I'd always have, a few girls who want to come out, and I wasn't a big fan of it, and not that I didn't want to give them the opportunity, but women are built differently on the outside and the inside. And instead of embracing that difference, I feel like they're trying to change it to where it doesn't matter anymore that you're physically stronger than them. We can neutralize it by doing this or whatever, and that way everyone's equal. I mean, that's kind of how I thought about it. I hadn't thought about the Ahab thing, but those were my thoughts on it.
In order to keep this PG, it's tough for me to even respond to that because where do you draw the line? I mean, if a man is going to be a man and be degraded or put down for doing that, if he's being chivalrous and going to be put down for it, that's somehow toxic. I have a problem with that. If a man is protecting his family, or if a man is protecting his wife and is going to be put down for that, I have a problem with that. A man doesn't have to be effeminate. So this whole toxic masculinity, I have a problem with the whole subject. Men are men, women are women. God created us that way, and we have specific roles. And I was in law enforcement 26 years, and I am a protector. That's what I do. And in law enforcement, if I'm the only one at the scene and a woman wants to put her hands on me and attack me, I'm not going to bring a knife to a gunfight. I mean, is that toxic masculinity? No. It's society wanting to level the playing field where there shouldn't be. I'm going to say this. There are areas where there should be a level playing field. Yes. But there are also areas where there shouldn't be a level playing. And biblically, men have a role to play. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. There are two genders, male and female. God created us that way. Period. Full stop.
I think when you're talking about level the playing field, my thoughts were it doesn't have to be a playing field though. Like you said, you need to embrace that there's a male and there's a female, and your strengths and is your identity because you're better at certain tasks. Women are better at certain tasks.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be about that we all have to be the same. Tall people are tall. It doesn't mean that a shorter person has to have a step stool provided everywhere just so that they can be the same. Let them take advantage where they can, and you got to embrace it. And like I said, I just think we've gone too far because men didn't do a good job early on because we were physically stronger and we dominated and we oppressed the women. And if we took it from more of the biblical, and love and acceptance, I don't think we'd have any of this problem. You would appreciate that, hey, this woman is totally different. The way she looks at things, the way I do, is unique. I can't be like that. I can't duplicate that. I can go physically move something she can't. That's why a man and a woman are meant to be together.
I know many, many women who are very strong.
Well, yeah.
Much stronger than I am. And that's why there are men's divisions in powerlifting and there are women's divisions in powerlifting.
Yeah.
That's why there are men's divisions in the UFC. That's why there are women's divisions in the UFC.
I'm generalizing, I'm just saying a man and a woman physically, they're as a typical is different.
Correct.
But I want to dig a little deeper on something that you pointed out. Because I think a lot of this stems from the feminist movement, and I agree. I think that women were put into a box they shouldn't have historically. I think that they were minimized and not given opportunities that they should have been given. I don't think that is prevalent anymore. I don't think that it's what it's. I don't think that it is what it's claimed to be anymore. But I think that it comes from and still lives in an idea that people treat women as less than, or that people see men as being better than women, and that's why they want to try to make everything equal.
I'll shame on those people.
And that's not, but I don't think that's the case at all. And I don't think most people feel that way. I think people realize that there are just simple differences. Women are better at some things than men, and men are better at some things than women. For example, when it comes to raising kids, women are mother hens. That's why the term mother hen exists. They are better emotionally. They are better at, healing the wounds and drying the tears, and they are better at dealing with the emotional side of raising the children, whether it's boys or girls or what, it doesn't matter. Men are better at the structural side. Men set rules, set boundaries, and set them up for the social interaction. That's just been proven. When you look at the numbers, and I wish I'd have thought about this ahead of time to bring it, but when you look at the statistics, kids that come from a home with both parents versus kids that come from a home with a single mother versus kids that come from a home with a single father, the crime rates for kids from both parents versus a single mother are vastly different. The crime rates from both parents to a single father are very much the same. They're not exactly the same, they're very much the same. So kids that come from two parents or a single father have about the same likelihood of going to prison or getting on drugs or all of those things. But and whereas if they come from a single mother, they are a much higher likelihood of going to prison, getting on drugs, committing crimes, or all of that. Like I said, I'd be able to state this better if I'd have thought to bring this ahead of time. However, when you look at the mental and emotional stability of kids that come from two parent homes versus a single father and a single mother, and I haven't researched this, but I would bet money that the ones that come from a single mother versus the ones that come from a single father are going to be emotionally more adept than the ones that come from a single father. And they're going to match up more to that double parent home until they get into drug situations and stuff like that, which is then going to, because mothers are emotionally better than fathers at preparing their kids for the emotional situations in life. That's why it's so important to have both present for the formative years of kids. But my point is not to talk about the kids; it's to talk about. It's not that people are saying men are better than women. It's just men are different from women. That's why most of the jobs like construction and infrastructure and all that tend to be mostly men, because physical jobs, they're a lot heavier lifting, and men go for them and women just don't. And when you do see a woman in that job, a lot of times they don't make it very long, or they're just one of those anomalous women who is stronger than other women.
Yeah.
It's just women aren't built for that.
And we're not saying they can't. And I think that's what a lot of times you have people that are driven to prove, well, as a woman, I can do this. And that's not at all what we're talking about. It's just, we're in a shop. There's different tools on the wall. Each one has a purpose, and they're better for certain things. Doesn't mean you can't. Doesn't mean you can't use it for something and it won't work. I mean, doesn't mean women can't do these certain things. And if they want to, all power to them. But embrace what is natural, what feels good, and that's okay. Like typically women are secretaries and men aren't. Doesn't mean man can't be, but the way that their brains are geared, it's not a man's calling. It's, and then society doesn't want to embrace that. It's that everything is equal, or they're out to prove a point. And I guess I think where society is just so mixed up. Is not, no one accepts anything. Being different is not okay. Everyone needs to look this way, act this way. Everyone's equal. Everyone can do everything. Because I teach construction, and there's women in construction. It's a real thing, but they're not as many because you just watch it. Their eyes don't light up when you give them power tools. With a boy or a young man, it does. That's not something odd. It's just what's in them. And there's nothing wrong with embracing that.
Well, we're at about 40 minutes.
So we push on. We'll break this.
Let's do it.
All right. So the things that I think are toxic masculine, right? So I don't think that it's a just throwaway term because I think there is some truth to it. But the things that I think that do play into toxic masculinity are things like boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Right. That's the emotional garbage that I'm talking about. Men don't do well because we grew up with that. I mean, we definitely grew up in that generation. I think that's kind of getting better now. I think we've overcorrected, but I think that part of stuff is getting better now. But yeah, the whole boys don't cry, bottle up and stuff down your emotions and don't be vulnerable. And, the whole, I got this idea that men of our age have.
Mm-hmm.
And, Gen Zs or Gen Xs, Gen Zs, millennials, all those guys have. It's just, and before us, it really doesn't do us any.
Yeah.
And it drives us toward a really lonely place when you don't have somebody, when you don't feel safe sharing things with somebody. I got to a point as a young man where I knew two emotions: happy or angry. Anything that didn't make me happy just made me angry because I couldn't process it, and tore up my hands because I beat on it, not people. Luckily, I was taught different than that. But I would hit a lot of stuff, and it didn't hurt anything but me. But what other things in toxic masculinity are expound on that? What do you think needs to go from toxic masculinity?
Well, definitely. I think emotions. I know. I mean, well, that was honestly though one of the things I feel like that God changed me is he softened my heart. I mean, I could probably count on one hand how many times I cried before I came to Jesus, and now, I mean, I see a good commercial and I might have a tear in my eye. And as I work through that, and I become more comfortable crying, there's still part of me that's like, man, I gotta hide this. I can't let someone see I have a tear in my eye because I'm being emotional. And but that's definitely something, telling another man you love him. Uh, it's something that society just it frowns upon, I guess. And but it's to me that's part of being masculine is that I can say I love you, bro, and not worry, like, oh my gosh, he's gay now, or, things like that. There's the strength that a man should have, and that's part of the toxicness is they take that strength from you away, and they just leave you as like a kind of like you said, you're just like a caveman. Just go mow the yard, be strong, and carry heavy stuff.
I would say humility and being able to actually have you touched on it, but emotions and show compassion. Some you mentioned just happy or angry, but having humility and being able to empathize with people.
Yeah, I like that the vulnerability. As a teacher, I try not always I have been this way, but later as I've matured and I see kids, when they struggle, and I want them to know I struggle. So I'm transparent with them, when hey, yesterday I was kind of a jerk to some kids. Look, this is the reason why I'm going through this stuff. Like, I'm not dealing with it well, and I put that out there and show them, like, as a man, it's okay to tell them that I don't have all the answers. I made a mistake. I was short with you. Just I'm a human just like you are. I think so many times you look up at men and you don't see anything, you don't hear anything, and so I got to bottle it up. He hit his finger and he didn't even say anything. I guess I got to be tough like him, and just kind of like we talked about in the last episode is just rewriting the narrative that society gives you. Be a strong man and do the biblical things. Love other people. Show them you're vulnerable. Show them you care. Show them grace. Show them forgiveness. Not I have to punch you if you make a mistake. It's I can still show you love. I mean, to me, those are all the toxic things. But it goes all the way back again to just I think it's just as the Bible gets stripped out of America, it's where it's going. It's so many different rules. Everything's equal. We got to if a man has this, then a woman has to have this, and all the Title IX things. And it's just we just loved each other and accepted each other. We wouldn't have to have all these rules and laws, and so many of them just they make no sense. But got to be equal.
So, what you guys are talking about reminded me of Ezekiel 36, verse 26. Yes, I had to look it up. You guys saw me do it. It says, "And I will give you a new heart, and with new and right desire. And I will put a new spirit in you. I will take out your stony heart of sin and give you a new obedient heart." So all that, the ability to feel and process emotions, the humility, and the putting your ego aside, and your willingness to be vulnerable in front of people and say, you know what, I'm going through some stuff, and I'm sorry I treated you poorly because of crap in my life, things like that. All that stuff that masculinity of our youth says, don't do that. Don't be imperfect.
Yeah.
And we know now, we've matured to the point that we're like, that's just stupid, right? So that's the kind of that is the kind of toxic masculinity we need to get rid of. The things that, and we're a little bit, protected from this being in Texas, but the things that I think toxic masculinity is not is the whole chivalry. Chivalry is not dead; it is on life.
It's not dead in Texas.
But I just can't fathom somebody being upset over opening a door, or any of the pulling out a chair for them, offering your jacket to them. How is that? And you're going to turn around. I don't need you to open the door for me. I know you don't need it. I'm not doing it because you need it. I'm doing it to show respect, or to show you that you're important, or that I care for you. I'm not doing it to make you feel less than. If I didn't care about you, I'd walk in and close the door and let you do it yourself. I just don't. I can't fathom how we have twisted some of these things to the point that I'm gonna get.
I had a thought. So the first note that I had for this is Romans 12:2. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And my thoughts on that was only the Holy Spirit can renew you and transform you. And I think really all the stuff that we've talked about, it's not our job and it's not society's job to change how we look at it. I think it's our job and is to get more people to follow Jesus. And I think if you're holding a door for a woman that loves Jesus, she's going to love that you hold the door. And I think that's the really the root of the problem is that we just don't have enough people that follow Jesus, and they don't see, they're missing everything. The strength and all the stuff that they're looking for, they're not going to be transformed. They have hate in their eyes. If you look at everyone with love, you're going to accept, even if they're doing something silly, but if you see that they're trying to do it out of love, you're going to accept that and you're going to show them grace. So let's go shoot the machine gun.
Oh yeah.
So, non-toxic masculinity is living like
Yeah, I think if we're going to put a bow on it, that's what I say.
Well, non-toxic masculinity is fruit of the spirit. I mean, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
it's not a coconut. That's for you, Mike.
Yeah, I just you can feel people that follow Jesus. I mean, they it oozes out of them. You know,
They hold
they're not,
themselves differently.
yeah, they're nicer. You know, and you can feel the exact opposite: the bitterness and the anger and the hate and things like that. I think it's pretty evident. And, you know, when you're holding the door for somebody and you see that anger, you know that's not Jesus.
Yeah, if you got to put a little fish on your car so that people know that you're a Christian, peel that fish off and get back to the altar. All right, that's my mic drop. I'm going to check out. All right, so we hit a good spot to wrap.
Yep. I don't even like the term.
Yeah,
I had to look.
I think there are some things from classical masculinity, and I think that they are starting to. But yeah, I think that it's becoming all enveloping. That means that it's just not appropriate. But I think that's kind of what we're doing here is to guide people toward appropriate masculine.
I think it's a secular term that the world is trying so hard to make everything fit. They're trying to cram a square peg into a round hole that we just need to say enough. I mean, enough. Masculinity is masculinity, and biblical masculinity is something entirely different. And like Jason said, if we just live Jesus, that's it. If we hold Jesus high, the rest takes care of itself.
All right, and so one more episode on this, and we're gonna go through some traits that I found for what I think without biblical masculinity, and we'll talk about them and see if you guys agree or not. Dig a little deeper on each of them and see where we think that fits in, or if not, and then that'll be a little bit of a framework for all of us to work from and work toward.
Better application.
Yeah, better application, better picture of biblical masculinity in our own life. Appreciate you guys holding in with us. We'll see you on the next one.
Until next time.